Hi, this is Sridhar from wpdevdesign.com. In this video, I'm going to cover the workflow to visually arrange the posts displayed by Oxygen's Easy Post component in a grid using Pinegrow CSS Grid Builder. We are going to first use a Easy Post component in Oxygen and then copy the HTML that it outputs and put it inside Pinegrow, and then um, visually build the grid using the tools that are inside Pinegrow, and then take the CSS that it generates and put it back inside Oxygen. And what you're seeing here is what we are going to do today. This is the latest post, and it links to the corresponding permalink, and you can see the title of that particular post, and these are the other 4 posts. So these are the latest 5 posts. For you to do this, you need to have a copy of Pinegrow, which is a commercial software that you can install on Mac or a PC. Alright, let's get started. So the first step is to set up Easy Posts. So I'm gonna go inside my sample page, and I'm going to delete the Easy Posts so that we can start from scratch. So I have a section here, and I'm going to add a Easy Posts component inside. And I'm going to change the query to custom and set it to display entries of the post type, and set the count to 5. So that is going to show these 5 posts in this fashion. Okay, so if you take a look at what we are trying to accomplish, you can see that it does not have any of the post content or excerpt. It does not have the read more. It just has the featured image and the title. So we can go back to the templates PHP, and we can tweak this code to simplify and remove the elements that we do not need. So for example, I am going to delete everything from there till here. And for the instead of the post image date overlay, what we're going to have is a title overlay. So I'll set a custom CSS class over there, and we want to display the title. So we'll do that, and I want this title to be inside heading tags with a class of oxy post title. And I just realized that this function the underscore title is actually going to output rather than return the title, so there is no need to do echo here. If it were get underscore, that is when you need a echo. Alright, and you can see here that inside this A, we have a div which has the background image that is set to the featured image. So we can simplify this by taking this entire um, yeah, entire style attribute and its value and set it for this a element like that, and I can now delete this div. Okay, so let me apply this code, and we have it like this. All right, it is going to make our job easy if each of these oxy each of this oxy post div has a numbered class. By that I mean to say something like oxy post 1 for the first post, and then oxy post 2 for the second, 3 for the third, and so on. So the way that we can do that is by adding a small piece of snippet in which we are declaring a variable called counter as a global variable, and we're setting the value as 1. So once you do that, um, we can call that variable here, and here we can say echo oxy post okay. So what this is doing is that it is basically calling the global counter, and you know that we have set the value as 1 in the code snippet. So the first time this runs, it is going to add the class of oxy-post-1, and then this counter gets incremented. That means 1 gets added to it, and the next time this gets run, its value will have the counter will be 2. So we have oxy-post-2. In this fashion, we have oxy-post 1 through 5 classes applied automatically to this particular div. Okay, so let us save our page, and I'm going to go here and reload, and right click somewhere here, it doesn't matter exactly where, and inspect. And I'm going to click on this div that has a class of oxy posts. So this is the element that we are going to set as a grid. So I'm just going to hit Command C or to copy the HTML of this entire div, including the children. Okay, so now we have got the HTML that we need to import into Pinegrow. So let's switch to Pinegrow, and here I'm going to click on this button to create a new page or project, and then I'm going to select plain HTML and new HTML. Okay, so I'm going to hit Command S to save this file, and the name of the file here does not really matter. It can be new, index, whatever. I'm just going to create a folder temporarily and save the file. And Pinegrow asks if we want to open this folder as a project. So when we say yes, what it is going to do is to uh, add a CSS file and link it to this HTML. So we definitely want the CSS with the style.css, because the CSS that the Pinegrow is going to generate will be saved inside this file, and we need to copy this code and put it back in Oxygen. Okay, so let me click on this HTML file, and we're already in there, and I can click on this button to see and edit the HTML of this page. So I'm going to put my cursor in between the opening and closing body tags and paste the entire HTML that we copied from Oxygen's easy post component output. Okay, so I can close this out. Now we're going to set up the grid. So I am just going to click somewhere here, and I have already selected the correct element. You can see here in the breadcrumbs trail at the bottom that div.oxy-posts is the correct or the current element that is selected. Now I can click on this button here to create or edit the CSS grid. I can also press this Command G shortcut on a Mac. I believe it is Control G in Windows. So when you click that, since it does not have a grid set, it is going to ask if you want to create. Say yes. And by default, it is going to create a grid that has 3 columns and 1 row. Let me first set a grid gap of 30 pixels. So this is the space that is in between the horizontal and vertical cells, and this is entirely up to you how much ever you want to set. And I am going to put my mouse here and click on this plus to add a column, and click on it once more to have 5 columns, and I'm going to add a bunch of rows like that. So if you remember the design that we are aiming for, let me show it to you, which is this one. You can see we have one very white one white post and the remaining 4 posts like this. So the first post, it is going to be placed inside this area, and the second post is going to be uh, placed here, third here, fourth here, fifth here. So it looks like we have an extra column, so I'm just going to delete that. Okay, so let us name these areas as P1 for post 1, and this entire area as P2, and this as P3, this as P4, and this as P5. So I can just move that aside, and I'm going to click on this Oxy post. Make sure that you are editing this Oxy post, because this is the grid child, the direct element child of the grid parent, which is Oxy posts. So with this, I am going to drag that till it goes to the end, and drag this vertically down like that. So we have just created our first grid area, and now we need to give it a name. To do that, you click on the style attribute and set named area, and I'm just going to call this post 1 or P1 to be short. And you can see here that we have just created this grid area called P1. And now I'm gonna click here and make sure that oxy post is the one which is currently selected, and I'm going to drag it down to define my new additional or second grid area, and I'm gonna give it a name, this time P2. Again, repeat the process. So here we can see the grid that Pinegrow has generated for us. Okay, so if I click on this oxy post, um, here you can see the styles that Pinegrow has generated. So this is the CSS property and the value, and these are inline styles at the moment. We need to make Pinegrow write these things to style.css, and to do that you just click on this plus and select or set the selector, in this case oxy posts, and click on create. So then it is going to basically move all the CSS properties and values and set it for this particular selector and put that inside style.css. If you want, you can click on the style.css and see that over here. Okay, so let me click on this oxy post, and here you can see that it has returned this particular CSS, and we also need to put this inside the CSS file. So I'm going to click on plus, and this time I'm going to select oxy post 1 because this is specific to this first post, and I should not select this oxy post, otherwise it is going to apply to all the posts. So just for the first post and create, and repeat this for other posts. Okay, so the next step is to make the images show up. The reason why the images are not appearing is because they have been set as background images and not inline images or the images using the img element. So what we need to do is set two properties for the images. First is to set its display to block, and the second thing is to set its height to 100%. So I'm gonna select the image, okay, and I'm going to create a new CSS rule for oxy post image, and I'm going to set its display to block, and we need to set the height to 100%. Okay, and we do not want the background to repeat, so I'm going to click here, and we want the background to be centered, and the background size should be cover. Okay, cool. And the next thing we're going to do is to uh, take care of these post titles. Let's make these thing appear near the bottom, left aligned, with a um, transparent black background and white text. So for us to position these titles absolutely, we need to set the display of the parent to a position relative. So I'm gonna um, select the oxy post, but that is oxy 1. Okay, so I need to basically create a new selector for this oxy post. I'm going to create that, and I'm going to set the position. Oh, not that. I'm going to set the position to relative, and I'm going to select this oxy post title overlay div, which contains the heading title, and I'm going to set the display. No, display is fine. We need to set the position to absolute. Okay, and we need to set the bottom. It could be 0, or let's say 10 pixels from the bottom, and left is 0 pixels, and let us set some padding. Five pixels at the top and bottom, and 12 pixels at the left and right. And let's set a background of RGBA, like that. Okay, and now I'm going to select the title, and we are going to set the text color to white, and set this to oxy post title, and click on create. Okay, so it looks like we made some mistake with respect to no mistake, we just need to assign this to a class. So I'm gonna click on this and say oxy post title overlay and create. Okay, there you go. All right, so we've got the grid working fine on the desktops. Now comes the part where we need to do some responsive adjustments. Um, by default, Oxygen comes with 4 breakpoints: 480 pixels, 768 pixels, 992, and 1120. To use the same in Pinegrow, we need to actually add 1 to these values. Uh, what I mean by that is, if you go to page and manage breakpoints, here we can add custom breakpoints. So for 480 pixels, breakpoint and oxygen, you actually need to put 481 here. And for 768, we put 769. 992, we put 993. And for 1120, we put 1121. Okay. So let's just keep reducing the width to see when the layout breaks. That's fine. It's okay. Yeah, I think that from 768 pixels and below, we need to start making these posts appear one below the other. All right, so let's do that. So just make sure that the viewport width is set to 768 pixels, because from 768 pixels and below, I want these posts to appear one below the other. So it is important that we need to be looking at the one of the viewport sizes that fall in that range. So it can be, of course, 768 or 767 or whatever. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to select this Oxy posts div, and the selector that we have created for that is here. I'm going to duplicate this particular selector, and so basically one is for the uh, viewport widths that is above 768, and the other is for 768 and below. So with one of these two selected, it should not really matter which one. I'm going to click on this media query, and I am going to select this one, smaller than 769 pixels. So that means it is going to basically put the Soxy post inside a media query that says max width 768. That is 768 pixels or below that. Okay. So for this selector, we are now ready to make changes to the grid. So I can click on this button, and I'm going to delete these columns. We just need one column in mobile or smaller widths. And here I'm gonna click here and change this to P2, and change this to P3, change this to P4, and change this to P5. And I'm gonna change this 100 pixels to 300, so we can actually see the image better. Also on mobiles, let's say I want to just have 20 pixels of gap. That's up to you. If you want to change, you can change it. And let's close this. So you can test this by going up. So 760, anything above 769 and above is going to be like this. 768 and below, we have just made these posts to appear one below the other. Okay, so now it is time to take the CSS and put it in Oxygen. I'm going to click on style.css and copy the entire CSS and go back to templates CSS and paste here. Now we need to prefix each of these selectors with percentage, percentage, EPID percentage space. So what this does is that it will make this entire CSS unique just to this instance of easy posts. Otherwise, it is going to apply the same thing to other easy posts as well. So I'm going to copy that and paste. Okay, so let us save and refresh, and you can see that the titles are huge. So let us go to styles, title, and set the font size to 20 so it looks better. Okay, so let us start observing how this behaves responsively, and at certain point you can see that it is breaking. The reason being that Oxygen has this settings by default where the posts are set to 50% width and 100% width at certain widths. So just set this to never to basically prevent Oxygen from adding CSS to our custom CSS. So it is going to be like this, and 768 and below it is going to be like this. Okay, so I hope you found this tutorial helpful. Let me know if you have any questions. Bye for now.